Hi, everybody. Welcome to ZealZaddy. I'm Scott, and my pronouns are he, him. This is StoryTalk, where every picture tells a story. Tonight, we're going to give some gushing appreciation to Cypher System, talk about all the stuff Monte Cook Games is putting out, along with the growth in the third-party products for Cypher, which I'm really excited about that. We have some creators involved in here tonight. We have streamers, people working with them. I mean, this is an amazing group tonight. So the first thing I want to say is you can follow ZealZaddy everywhere at ZealZaddy. We have product on DriveThruRPG. Currently it's 5e product, but we are moving to Cypher, so we're doing our conversions now. We're partners with Underground Oracle Publishing, and they have a big Kickstarter. And then we also have Chris Negelein, who has a Kickstarter coming up. Please, when you see the link to go check it out, go check it out and sign up to be notified. It is going to be amazing. So sometimes we forget how awesome it is to be complimentary of the products we find exciting and joyful to use. So our appreciation series is continuing tonight. We did one about 3 weeks ago. So this is the all-encompassing system, Cypher System by Monte Cook Games. From its base have come games like Numenera, Planebreaker, The Strange, Invisible Sun, Darkest House, Gods of the Fall, Ptolus, the upcoming The Gods of Appalachia. I think I said it right.
Yes, you did.
Plus third-party games and settings like the upcoming Harrow the Blighted Plain by Underground Oracle and Mystery Flesh Pit National Park by Chris Negelein, who you will meet in 1 minute. So let's talk about what makes Cypher everyone's favorite, often oft-kilter, everything system. Welcome, everybody. All right, so let's go around and say hi to everybody. I think I'm going to start with Dean, because Dean is like the pro at being on this stuff.
I don't know about a pro, but at any rate, I'm Dean Lewis, AlphaDean across the interwebs. I'm also a content creator for Cypher System. I will actually have a Kickstarter coming out myself later this year, as well as a Kickstarter with my two fellow compatriots over at Cypher Unlimited called GM Roulette. So there's some exciting stuff out there. I've been gaming for longer than most people have been alive out here, but then again, there's a bunch of us old folks too, and that's who I am.
All right, let's go with Eileen then.
Hi, everybody. My name is Eileen. My pronouns are she, her. This semester, I am interning with Monte Cook Games. I am using that knowledge to develop a archaeology Cypher System game eventually, probably in the next 2 years. And I'm really happy to be here.
I have such a good question for you tonight. Chris.
I'm Christopher Robin Negelein. I'm also known as Ganza Gaming across the interwebs, especially in the Cypher circles, where I've put out over 20 different community content PDFs, as well as I'm going to be doing my own Kickstarter soon with the website Mystery Flesh Pit National Park, so cosmic horror meets bureaucratic satire. And I am, hey Dean, look, I am wearing your GM Roulette t-shirt.
Nice.
All right, and Alex.
Hi, I'm Alex. I'm a cast member from the podcast Explorers Wanted. Right now we're mainly a Numenera podcast, and we do one-shots in a ton of different systems.
And you've been doing it for a long time. Like, that podcast has been on for... How long has it been on? It's been on forever.
3 years? And yesterday was our podcast anniversary.
Podcast
we have it awesome on our calendars.
We had you on the show, didn't we, Alex?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, you guys were on the show. Like when you first started off, we have an interview with Explorers Wanted.
Awesome. So everybody in chat, if you want to ask questions, please put the word question in the front of it. Maybe all caps would be amazing, so that it's very easy for me to find. It helps me when I'm sorting through chat to find the questions that we want to bring forward. All right, so let's just get started with fun stuff. So the first one is, are you a creator of Cypher System products, and in what capacity? Writing, designing, artist, publisher? And if not, is it an aspiration? And I know that that Chris is. So why don't we start with Chris and let it go around. By the way, I don't need to tell you to go around. You can just hop in all you want. This is like open fun.
Well, thanks. So basically, I had gotten into doing some design with 5e for a game called Esper Genesis, where you're in this little pen. Some friends of I and ZealZaddy had put together for Science Fiction 5e. And then I heard that Cypher did community content, and really, I felt really comfortable making stuff with Cypher. So, and at the time, it was a good schedule with my day job, and I made a lot of stuff. And the most, probably the most popular one people know me for is Mortal Fantasy, which lets you do, it gives you more details on how to do fantasy with Cypher, which evidently is a very popular thing.
Popular.
And then Dean and I and another fellow, Andrew Marlowe and Monica Marlowe, were asked to be some of the first adopters for the open license for Cypher a couple of months before they made it public, and we said yes. And most of us have come up with some crazy Kickstarter ideas, and that has been kind of my life. That has not been my day job ever since.
Awesome.
So I'll jump in next. As Chris said, you know, him and I both are pretty prolific on drive-through through the content creator program that Cypher System originally put out, or Monte Cook Games originally put out. And then, of course, as to be first adopters of the open gaming license that they have, their Seesaw. We're going to do GM Roulette as a group. Cypher Unlimited is a concept we came up with at Gen Con 2018. Literally our first meeting together, we came up with an idea of basically having game night in a box and using the Cypher system to do it. And we're going to put that together. As far as content creation, my tastes drive from one end of the spectrum to the next. You know, this image behind me is a concept image I have for the city of Septem, which is going to be the basis of my Kickstarter, my own personal one that I want to do called Legacy of the September Right, which is going to bring crazy martial arts ideologies, the wuxia concept, combine that with Afrofuturism and some pulp era ideologies. For example, you know, when you think Indiana Jones, so exploratory type ideas, you know, an ancient world or ancient ideas to be discovered in a brave new world. And of course, got to have a splash of superheroes because, you know, what self-respecting geek doesn't enjoy a superhero? So that's kind of the concept for that particular thing that's going on. And I've always wanted to create. You know, I've tinkered with systems. I've been gaming for over 40 years, and every system, you know, that I've ever touched, I've house ruled and tinkered and, you know, pushed the boundaries. And Cypher System is just the perfect playground for that because no matter how you tinker, you really can't break the system. I think you're muted, Scott.
Oh, sorry. I knocked over my glass and I had to try to turn it off to keep from getting loud. So Eileen or Alex, you want to join in and say anything you've done as development or you're interested in developing? If it's an aspiration for you, if you're not.
I've been a Cypher GM for 6-7 years now. I haven't put out any products yet, but the archaeology game will be my senior capstone project for my degree. I'll be using some influence from some of the Numenera types, but it's a public archaeology project, so it's kind of teaching how archaeology works to folks who aren't familiar with the discipline. So it'll be both an educational tool and a game, which turns out archaeo gaming is a big thing out there. My mentor turned me on to, so there are archaeology games out there. So I'm excited to get into that world.
Very cool.
Now, Eileen, I'm gonna have to pull your ear because, you know, the whole concept of having that, you know, Indiana Jones type adventure aspect, we got to talk now. That's going to be some good research for me to make some authentic, you know, moments in the game.
I am more than happy to help out with anything. Oh, adding Cypher and archaeology together is just my two passions. So I'm very excited to get into this, and getting the internship thrown in there, getting some of the sneak peek on the back end of how Monte Cook Games themselves do their game design has been, it's great. It's great.
Yeah, amazing. What about you, Alex? Aspirations or no?
I don't know. Like, I have a weird skill set. I'm like, I don't think any of that translates to games. I'll just, I'll be the playtester. It'll be fine.
That's fine. Not everybody wants to be a creator. In fact,
Playtesters
it's actually better
are
if not.
definitely needed.
It's actually better if not everyone is a creator.
Yeah.
So there's people to buy some of the stuff too. That's awesome. Okay, so the next question is a super easy lead-in. Favorite Cypher system-derived product and why? Could be a system, a setting, whatever, anything else.
I'm a bit odd. I think because there's so much about the Cypher system to be excited for, and so many products resonate at different frequencies and different moments. It's hard to say that I have a favorite. So I actually will probably go and say that the toolkit books, all the white covers with the nice colorful silhouettes on them, I think they all will range up there as my favorite books or favorite product for MCG because they give you so much, and as a creative, a lot of times you'll have 1,000 ideas swirling around and need some way in order to kind of focus it or direct it. And those books are absolutely wonderful for that because you can pick one. Like a prime example is like Stay Alive. I remember when I got the Stay Alive book, I got the PDF. I read the PDF twice in the same night. I went from the front of the book to the end of the book twice in the same night. It was that good. It was that enjoyable. And it just gave you idea after idea. And I literally, because I run tons of demos at my local game store, this place here, Iron Buffalo. So if you're ever in Buffalo, come to Iron Buffalo, get some coffee, come game with me. But at any rate, the idea behind it was that I actually have like a message board archive of one-shot adventures. Some of them have been fully fleshed out. Some of them are in the planning stages, but because Cypher is so easy prep, it takes nothing. So, people just send me a message, on the message board and like, hey, can I play in your Cypher one shot for superheroes or your Cypher Wild Weird West? I just grab it, okay, and keep it moving. So yeah.
So the question was favorite Cypher product and why, just in case, because it was a long answer that Dean gave, so you don't forget.
The one I've spent the most time with was Gods of the Fall. I ran a year and some change campaign. And then I've started getting into Path of the Planebreaker. So it's kind of a toss-up between there and then when Old Gods comes out, I'm sure I'm going to have to reevaluate. It's just, and I like mixing and matching, taking a little bit from one book and a little bit from the other book and kind of putting it together too.
Cool. The other two? Chris, you have to have a favorite. Alex, I'm sure you have a favorite. Alex has been playing Numenera forever, but I wonder if that's her favorite or if that's just the one they've been playing.
I mean, like, if I'm going to get, like, super specific, but, like, the Sooth deck?
Oh,
Okay.
Invisible Sun. From the Invisible Sun.
So, not to toot his horn, but Daniel, our GM, did a really interesting thing with it where to get us to, like, make characters' decisions when we first made them, like our session zeros, he used the Sooth deck to help us push the story along and just did, like, one-on-one sessions with us.
Wow.
Like, we're going to use the Sooth deck, and it's going to help us make the story of your character's backstory.
That's awesome.
I'm notoriously bad at it.
But in Numenera, he pulled it into your Numenera game campaign. Oh.
Yeah, real quick, and that just as a, I guess you could say, quick disclaimer. Cypher system is one umbrella which holds, all the things we were talking about. But then Invisible Sun is actually a different system. they're similar
Yeah.
and similar conceptually, but it is a different system.
Yeah, that's why I said
for that.
derived, because I really think
Yeah.
there's enough that it pulled from to make it. You could say it's sort of like the cousin of.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Most stuff that Cypher, I mean, that MCG does, is you can find a way to make it compatible with other things, you know.
I mean, I can make Cypher compatible with OSR products. You just look at it. You look at the hit die of a thing, and and it's usually on a scale of 1 to 20. So you just divide by 2. Boom, you have the level of your Cypher critter right off the bat. There's this really crazy one that's kind of a psychedelic travel trip called Ultraviolet Grasslands.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, you look at it, you divide things by 2. You could run it as a Numenera campaign. In fact, I think some people have actually told me that's been my secret Numenera campaign. Has been UVG.
I
Yeah.
think my husband's done that. Yeah.
And then my 2 favorites are again, Staying Alive was really great. I also it opened my eyes in that there's a lot of what we call white space in Cypher, because the designer also, my brain just fried. I know his name and now I can't think of it because
It's Sean.
Sean K. Reynolds.
Sean, yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, Sean. I know it was you. I see it in my head. My jaw locked up. Designing a whole vampire system. You know, you could be a vampire. That's the mini campaign in the back, because the white books are toolkit, and then there's like a little mini campaign in the back, if just to kind of get your juices going. And that is also in the Strange, they have the Gloaming, which is obviously a recursive plane for all of the underworld / werewolf / World of Darkness stuff. And my other one that I have a weak spot for is the Predation book, which is an awesome time travel with dinosaurs and cybernetic dinosaurs, no less. And I mean, just the art in it is fantastic and inspiring. And I still think it is a legit crime. It was not picked up to be a TV show or an animated series of some sort. Just the art and the premise itself, I enjoyed it a lot.
I think what we're going to have to do, I think that right now everybody is just predicated on Dungeons and Dragons. D&D is the most visual and visible product out there, and it's just going to take us doing what we're doing now and, get some more stuff going to bring that awareness. So when people actually see Cypher System and realize that Cypher System is nothing more than a true cinematic experience at a table, I think the paradigm, as I like to say, will shift, because that's literally what it boils down to, is awareness.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, where it's funny to watch the D&D movie and see it flip. It flipped backwards. You're getting the cinematic experience of what happens at the table versus Cypher, which is a cinematic experience at the table.
Yeah, that actually leads me to a question that I had, and I think it's a fun one. So I'm going to pair you up, and you're going to role play something. So I'm going to pair up Dean and Alex, and Chris and Eileen. So Dean, you are a D&D player for life. Alex, you've been doing this forever. Sell Dean on why he should try Cypher. And Dean's open-minded. He's, he's not just there to be stubborn.
I mean, it's steampunk D&D.
Is steampunk D&D?
Yeah.
Explain.
The world has ended about 8 to 9 times, depending on who's playing it. And everything you can do in D&D, you can do in Cypher, except it's more cooperative, I'd like to say. You're not going against the DM. You always know how high you have to roll to win.
Okay. So if that's the case, and you're saying it's like D&D, then, why would I not just play D&D? Why would I want to play this other game?
Because now we've added space travel and tentacle monsters and nukes. You can have a nuclear weapon.
Okay.
Yeah. How many cities can you end by the end of your campaign? That's what we all want to know.
Now those aspects are pretty cool, but I mean, any GM worth their salt, DM worth their salt could do that. I mean, there's Expedition to Barrier Peaks. They just redid. As a matter of fact, Alligator Alley just did a follow-up to Expedition to Barrier Peaks, and I mean, I don't know about this, this Cypher system. I don't know.
Well, the classes have been retooled, and depending on how you roll, it's how your character will develop. For example, your character can walk through walls, or they can end up ripping the bones out of people. Up to you.
Those are pretty cool ideas. I guess I'll give it a try.
Okay. All right.
I have very extreme examples.
All right, Chris, you're selling Eileen on it. Oh, somebody disappeared.
We lost Chris.
Oh, that was Chris.
Was that on purpose? I wanted to avoid this.
To avoid selling.
Oh, damn. That was super cool. All right, we'll watch for him to come back in. If I move all the windows around, I think I have to move around. It'll drive me crazy till he gets in. At least enough. At least enough.
I mean, you can feature my orchid. It's fine.
That's true. Come on, Chris. We'll see. I'm sure he'll hop in a second. All right. So, Eileen, you get to sell Alex on it then. We'll throw it the other way.
Okay. Well, working in my friendly local game store, I have had this discussion.
Ooh.
So.
I've had it so many times.
So, do you prefer to be in front of the GM screen or behind it?
Oh, golly. I think I like to be in front.
So, as a player, you essentially you can take any idea of a character, and there are your GM's description, many options to mix and match. So you don't have to be a cleric. You can bear a halo of fire and work miracles, or you could take any idea out of the ether, and my brain's going blank.
What if I wanted to be a bugbear?
If you want to be a bugbear, you would just find options that would build up to a strong, beefy kind of character that, you could smash things, should that be your inclination. Or it could be like the bugbear. I saw a piece of art that was a doula bugbear for a perfume, and it's a very calm, soothing kind of bugbear. Strong, but soft.
I like this idea. And do we fight dragons?
If you run the right game, you can, or you could just throw a random dragon in, because you never know what's going to happen in the Cypher system.
Someone could have flushed one, yeah. Oh man, imagine that in 100 years.
Who says there aren't dragons in space? Am I right?
True.
You're right.
Oh.
And the random guy in the store. Oh, but you may not want to fight dragons in Cypher because they're not pushovers like the ones in D&D.
It's got a point. I mean, skeletons in Cypher system are scary.
Yeah, they can be scary. The monsters.
I did enjoy that. The
monsters
man
are
made out of
beastly.
bees was good too.
Oh yeah.
Ooh.
Well, I'm still watching for Chris to come back on. All right, we'll
Yeah,
move on.
I sent him a message, but he didn't respond.
Yeah, he'll make it on as soon as he can. We'll move on to the next one. So we did get a question in chat that I wanted to make sure we got in. So, in your opinion, what property works best for Cypher? So, I mean, that's an interesting question. What property works best for Cypher? Does that mean the setting or external properties? Like, there's one writer I think that is so perfectly suited to Cypher, it's almost like they work together inadvertently, which is Neil Gaiman. I think everything Neil Gaiman writes is exactly perfect for Cypher, and Cypher feels like it's made around a lot of Neil Gaiman writing. Just it's so odd. Like Neverwhere is Invisible Sun. Coraline, probably Invisible Sun. American Gods could be the Gods of the Fall, or it could, I mean, there's just so many things that they're like just magically in sync. And I think that's kind of astounding. What about you? What properties do you think would
See, once again, I guess it's the way this the lens I look at things through. I wouldn't say there's any particular product that's perfect for Cypher. I'd say it the other way around. Cypher is just perfect for all products because literally it's a paradigm shift. However whatever lens you're looking at your media through, whether it's, the visual take, like watching a Marvel movie or something along those lines, or if you're reading a book and and it's very descriptive and in depth and rich in the world building, Cypher allows that. And the ability that you have in Cypher, because it's so modular in nature, you can plug and play different pieces from different games or different settings or what have you in order to make exactly what you want. I remember when Stay Alive first came out, they gave us the setting in the background, the mini setting. It inspired me to write a product called the Umbral Earth the horror remix, and that's on Drive-Thru. And the really cool thing about that particular one is it inspired me to create an entire pantheon for shapeshifters. So, it's not just lycanthropy, but I created a full-on, ideology about, so you could play a were-tiger or a were-panther or, whatever kind of beast you want, whatever type of shapeshifter. It allowed me to create the concept of having characters like, Sam and Dean from Supernatural and the Harbingers from Grimm and the Chosen Ones from Buffy the Vampire Slayer all in one set. It's all there. And it's because the system was so modular and so plug and play that I didn't have to weigh myself down trying to reevaluate or try to conceptualize a new mechanic or anything else to make these things work side by side seamlessly. Even to have vampires right next to my harbingers who can see the monsters, and right next to hunters who want to take them out, right next to hedge wizards and city mages and shaman all work together is an amazing thing.
No, my favorite video game property is Dragon Age, and I've had people ask me repeatedly, "Oh, Cypher so well. Are you ever going to do like a Cypher Dragon Age adaptation?" And it is on the to-do list. If you look at the kind of games I play, definitely dark fantasy is kind of my shtick. Dark fantasy, urban fantasy, somewhere in there. So I'm really looking forward to the It's Only Magic supplement coming out. Kind of mix that in with some of the other fantasy settings and probably come up with something Dragon Age-like.
Yeah, I'm waiting for Rust and Redemption. I can't wait to do my post-apocalyptic superhero game.
Oh, yeah.
That's cool.
And thank you, Gaming BS Sean, for joining us. I'm watching the chat.
Did you want to add anything to that, Alex? I can't tell whether you're...
I now have like a earworm like in my head that's just like, what we could do? Pokemon Cypher.
Ooh.
It could work.
I'd play it.
It absolutely can,
Yeah.
without a doubt. We've actually had several discussions on the server about doing Pokemon, how to do it. There's been various great ideas for exactly how to make it work. So, yeah, Pokemon Cypher would be, simplicity at its finest.
But my brain's taking it the next step where I'm just like, what if we did Pokemon plus like the Darkest House?
Oh, see, now you really want to get down in the weeds.
Ooh. That is so down and dirty. Like Pokemon as a horror. as a board
Well,
game.
Well, I mean, come on,
Wow.
they've turned Santa Claus into an action hero this year. We got The Grinch as a full-on slasher movie. So I mean,
Yeah.
Pokemon horror, I think that's easy.
well, like my dark past, once ran a Pokemon campaign, and I accidentally threw everyone in a murder house
Was it
and
an
almost
accident?
killed them all. Well,
Was it
I was
an
just like,
accident?
it's a haunted house. It'll be full of ghost Pokemon. It'll be fine. And then my brain was just like, but what if it was a murder mansion? I was like, oh.
Welcome back,
I don't know
Chris.
who's. Thank you. I don't know who had such an awesome idea that it kicked me off the internet, but good job for you guys. Good job.
We've moved on. We know you were actually trying to avoid the role playing aspect of that question, and you did. So right now we're answering one of the guest questions, which was, I gotta scroll up to it again. In your opinion, what property works best for Cypher? And everyone else has answered something.
For me, I think the best kind of, what you mean, like an intellectual property or just?
I think so. Yeah.
I think pretty much anything that is highly cinematic. Could be it could be superheroes, super spies. I mean, you could pretty much use it for anything, especially when it's a big sort of, woohoo, if you like the kitchen sink sort of thing.
Ooh.
So it's kind
Yeah.
of like saying, what goes great with peanut butter, lots of things.
I think Over the Edge needs to be bought by Monte Cook Games and turned into a Cypher product, because it would be, I nothing against
Those games?
Atlas Games, but I think the system doesn't do the setting justice, and Monte Cook Games would do justice to the setting, because I think it's an amazing setting. But that's really in the weeds for those that don't know that system.
I think that might be something we, as a community, could kind of, somehow, I guess, articulate a little bit more. Is just that Cypher system literally leans into settings. It leads into world building. It leads into a richness of experience and the evocativeness of the system itself isn't built upon any mechanic or anything. It's just that the mechanics just support the story you're trying to tell. So,
well, then there's a question that Jason C. of Shadow Domain, which if you don't read, they have a great blog on gaming. But what if their player really likes Vancine Magic, which is the D&D style of magic? Is there a way to adapt that for Cypher?
I did it already.
Yes. Then the answer is yes. It's already been done.
Yes. It's been done. There's a product on Drive-Through RPG, and in the upcoming Diamond Throne, there is another modification of it. Taking it advanced to another level. Vancian style magic isn't hard to do. The reality is, again, the biggest thing I think people have to do when it comes to Cypher is leave their previous crunchy game experience at the door and embrace what you're being told. Because like right from the first moment when you think about it, if you look at the adept, the baseline ability. So let's just often take the first one, or your first attack ability is called Onslaught. It's just a physical attack or a mental attack. It's not flavored any way. You can flavor it however you want. You could say it's a magic missile. You could say it's a flame tongue. It doesn't matter, because mechanically it's all the same thing. It's going to do some damage. Aesthetically, it's whatever you want it to be. Distortion, that's just the allegory to a blur spell from D&D. Ward, that's nothing but a shield spell. Resonance field, that could be nothing but protection from arrows, from normal arrows. The list goes on, but it's the view that you step into the room with when you first look at the characters. Most people are looking at it, they want everything, well, this is my character class. Now, mechanically, my character class has this, and these are my proficiencies, and these are my skills, and these are this, and this is this, not realizing that it's all a cohesive whole.
Right. So there's a question in chat, and I actually had a question that was sort of the opposite, but very similar. So I'm going to mix them. So the question they're asking, and is, in your opinion, where does Cypher struggle? But I'm going to add to that, which is there something that would be difficult to replicate in another system? So it's both parts. What would be difficult to replicate in another system, and what things would Cypher have difficulty in replicating?
Again, I'm going to sound like a fanboy. There's nothing that has difficulty replicating. It's the difficulty doesn't come from the system. The difficulty comes from the individuals and what limitations they set on their thought process. And what was part two?
What would Cypher have difficulty replicating, and what would be difficult for another system outside of Cypher to replicate that Cypher does well?
Well, the ability to say yes. Cypher literally is predicated on us telling our players yes.
Well,
yes,
good GMs do that all the time in every system.
So, if you don't mind me jumping in here.
Yeah, jump in.
So, like a perfect example of the opposite of the end of that question, I often describe Cypher, to kind of bridge whoever I'm talking with, in the tabula rasa of D&Dism. Cypher is D&D 5th level to 20 with a quarter of the paperwork. It does, other games struggle to do big things without making it complicated or having lots of different bonuses and things like that. Cypher does it without having to go through, extra things to jump. For example, people love their spell list. I want this spell list, this amount of spells in Cypher because why? Because I need the spells, all this. Why? How many spells do you actually use in your D&D session? If they count it, it'll be 5. And the names of them will be rotating different, but many of them, just like Dean said earlier, is the same spell, but at a higher level. So that's what, other games don't do well. Cypher is just getting that kind of more epic feel without, having 3 pages of a PC sheet to do. On the other end, at first blush, when you read Cypher, if you stick with what you're reading here in Cypher, people think Cypher is going to struggle in the opposite end of doing lower level things because they have it in their head, just like Dean says, I got to have ciphers. Well, how do I put those in there? Everything is, big and cinematic. How am I going to kind of tamp that down, sort of thing? And maybe the answers aren't like really spelled out for people, but especially for the Cypher system, you as a GM are to curate your foci and your types. So if you curate your foci, you can adjust the power level Cypher immediately has. Cypher has like how many foci does it have, guys? 70 more?
Just listed in the CSR, probably about 75.
75. And then even like Monte Cook Games, until very recently, their core games did how many focuses? 25. 15, 25.
Right.
And they even say in their genre chapters. I'm sorry, you guys got me started. I apologize if I'm going on. Do this when you need me to shut up. Every genre little subchapter only suggests you do 20, not the whole thing. So yes, License to Kill level 6 is not on the same level as like does spells tier 6, and they're not meant to. It's not like GURPS or Champions where all the powers make everything kind of Steven out. You're curating your list. So if you want to have a more gritty game, you don't put in, does miracles. You put in works back alleys and License to Kill.
Does do nothing,
And do nothing, yes. Or would rather be reading.
So what I heard from there was that it's not very good at making you suffer through levels 1 through 4.
That too.
Really. Well, see, that's the reality. Levels 1 through 4 don't exist in Cypher. Your characters start out competent. Your levels start out as if they have, even if they're, new adventurers, it makes sense.
I've never started my D&D game at level 3 or 4 or 5 ever.
Right. Yeah, we all did, But here's another thing that kind of goes along with what Gonzo was saying is I think that might be the biggest shortcoming is it doesn't communicate the flexibility in the world design like that. I don't think, you have this big massive list and everybody thinks, oh my God, I have to use everything that's listed there, and you don't. People also, it doesn't communicate to you well that early tiers can be very lethal just depending on how your GM sets stuff up. Because we get those discussions all the time. Well, I want to make it more gritty. Characters never have the fear of dying. That's not true. It just
Which is
depends on.
which is funny
Yeah.
because a lot of people who only skim the rules, the first thing they say is, "There's a death spiral. Those guys, all the fighters are going to die in 5 minutes."
Right. And that's the other thing. People don't get the other side of the coin. Oh, well, the fighter uses might for their abilities, and the fighter, is also taking damage to his might pool. And so, yeah, and
The first time I played, I had a fear of dying. I got hit really hard, really quick. And I was like, oh, I might die.
but that's the thing. But initially, people don't see it that way. Initially, when people look at it, they look at, oh, you've got a 14 might, you've got 12 speed, and you've got a 9 intellect. And they're going, oh, well, look, I got to get through all these points before I fall down a damage track and die. Not realizing a really good hit from, a creature or an NPC, will do, let's just say 8 points of damage. So now you have 14 might, now you have 6.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One more hit like that, oh my God, I'm down the damage track.
Yeah, and it cascades on you. Like going from a 14 to a 6 really makes you suffer in everything might related. In D&D, losing hit points doesn't make you less strong or less fast or any of that. You are fully functional until you hit 0.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. D&D is kind of the old concept of tactical versus the cinematic. When you think about when you watch a movie, it's the same thing. That's why I like the recovery rolls. I like the way the recovery rolls are set up within Cypher because that allows you to have those cinematic moments. You think about the scene in Die Hard when Bruce Willis's character is fighting the German guy in the hallway, and the guy is getting the better of him. And then the next thing I was like, oh, that was a recovery roll. That was a subtle Cypher. Saw both things right there in the same moment. He did a recovery roll and took a subtle Cypher and, amped himself up and bow, 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 and then he overcomes the obstacle. And that's what I love about Cypher. It allows you to do that, whereas I don't see that happening with D&D or, other systems that are predicated more on the system than the story.
So, I'm musing over this, and I have had this discussion with some of the gaming BS folks before. I would say that can Cypher do everything? Yes. But I do believe that there are reasons that games like Invisible Sun and Stealing Stories had their own mechanics, very similar mechanics. But there are, and there's nothing saying you can't take Cypher and tweak things mechanically either. But I think there are reasons that MCG created a different rule set for those games. It's not that you couldn't take that flavor and throw it into Cypher, but it's I will say it, Sean, it doesn't have to do everything super awesome, but it is, can you do everything? Yes.
Yeah, I think Cypher is built around flexibility, but it takes a creator time to build the setting around that flex, whatever it happens to be. That's why I think Invisible Sun is different. They took the Cypher stuff they wanted and they flexed new rules around a core. I think they're doing the same thing with Old Gods of Appalachia. I think they're going to be doing the same kind of thing. I'm not 100% sure, but just from listening to the podcast and hearing what I hear online, I think they're doing the same sort of thing. I mean, someone else eventually will know as soon as it's released. Let's talk about play. So tell us a really memorable GM or player intrusion that you've played out or experienced firsthand. And let's start with Alex, because this is right up Alex's alley right now. and then we'll go around with everyone else.
Well, since we have like a habit of never refusing XP because we're little XP hoarders in our campaigns, I think. Oh golly! Gee,
Actually,
what
can
a
you
guess.
explain what that is so that the people who aren't familiar with Cypher know what a GM
Oh.
or player intrusion is before you
Sure.
start?
So you'll be going along in your little story, tra la la la, and then the GM will be like, "Hey, I'd like to offer you a GM intrusion, and if you say yes, why certainly, you'll get an XP, and you'll get an XP to give to your favorite person at that time. Not really your favorite person, but you know, who you like the best that day." And if you refuse, you give them an XP to say, no, I like where my story is going right now. But usually we're like, yes, because why not?
Because chaos is better than stability.
Love the chaos. Let it rain. I'm trying to think of a good one that... Oh, golly. My mind's drawing a blank, and I, for some reason, feel like there was one during our heist. So, in our campaign, in an earlier episode, we were like, oh, we're just going to steal this artifact instead of doing actual legwork. We're going to wait till the day of the event, and it'll be fine. And it was not fine. And Daniel was just like, hey, GM intrusion. We're like, yes. It's not like we're doing a tactical mission right now. Go for it. And I believe like somebody got spotted, and it led to what we're good at, chaos. But we weren't like doing a great job anyway. Like my character had a horrible disguise, and it was beautiful, beautiful. One person was hiding somewhere else, so I
Yes.
just love like you're going one way with the story, and the GM's like, you know what? I got an idea. Can I just take it a little bit to the left?
Yeah, it was funny. Jason said he thinks he's only had one player refuse a GM intrusion ever.
Oh.
Because experience is really awesome to get and to share.
Well, it's just like you start thinking, okay, so I could take this XP and it would help me level up as a character, re-roll a really bad roll later on. There's so much I can do with this XP, or I could lose one and then inhibit myself. You know, do you want the XP, shoot yourself in the foot now, or maybe shoot yourself in the foot later? That foot's getting shot either way.
Point taken.
Anyone else want to hop in? Dean, what about a player intrusion you've come across that was damn good one?
Player intrusions are interesting because they're still for the rest of the community out there. They're kind of a new idea. We used to do player intrusions before MCG actually implemented them into the game, and we would charge 2 XP for them. I think as far as I don't know if I've had any great player intrusions because I'm normally the GM. So I'm always playing. I hardly ever get to be on the other side of the screen.
But no one's used one against you as not against you, but used one in your game that was
Actually,
like
no.
impressive?
Actually, no. Thinking about it, there is a really good player intrusion. I remember I was running a one shot for these kids that had come into the store on a humbug. They wanted to play D&D. There were no D&D people there, and I said, "Well, I'll run you through Cypher because I'm not running D&D." And I explained it to them and broke it down. And I made it a point. I have little cards that I hand out that just have basic information what you can do as a player. And they were playing cybernetic pirate. It was a cybernetic, pirate style thing. It was pirates in space basically, and it was a lot of fun because the one player was playing a full-on cyborg. He had been compromised and turned into a killing machine and the whole nine. And we had the one player, and it was like getting difficult. He had the worst rolls. Every time he had to make a cognitive roll or whatever, you couldn't do it. Well, we had one character who was a scientist, was a bioengineer, cyberneticist, and bioengineer and cyberneticist. And she came up with the idea to do a player intrusion to say that uh, that all along that this character was her brother. They shared DNA, and if she could use her DNA to help jumpstart his memories to bring him back,
Damn,
But
that is a good one.
it was really good. Yeah, I was like, you know what? Absolutely, let's do it. Give me the XP. That's like totally fair. So
Yep.
that was really good because he wore a mask the whole time. And so, she's like, yeah, well, I'm looking him up. So when I take his mask off, I want it to be my brother that I was missing. And that was literally on her back on her back sheet. It's something that I wrote, just to give give it some gravitas in the story. I write a little paragraph for all the pre-gens I make. So it was like pretty awesome that she just ran with that idea that this was her brother and used a player intrusion for it.
Impressive. Very cool. What about the other two? Chris, Eileen, anything?
Can I tell one for stealing stories?
Yeah.
So I got to play the Too Many Birds scenario with Sean K. Reynolds at GameholeCon. And essentially, it was weird things were happening because there were too many birds. And we were trying to infiltrate a casino in Las Vegas. And I was trying to create a distraction. And my character's ability was she could lie to animals to get them to do things. And I tried to get a raven to set off the fire suppression system because it was go time. We needed to get out of there. Well, it didn't work right away. About 5 minutes into that particular scene, suddenly it did work, and more birds came out of the fire suppression system. And it was just glorious, and I loved it.
Awesome. Chris?
So my players never really got the hang of doing player intrusions, though I encouraged it. But one of the better GM intrusions we had is we had a kind of a bard-like character in a fantasy setting. And they were like, oh, I have a closet of disguises, and I'm going to dive in and, pull out a uniform so I can, pretend to be one of the guards. And I was like, well, what are the odds? That's my kind of trigger phrase. What are the odds that you don't have that costume and you got to work with what's in the costume in your little drawer? And they're like, chaos, I'll take it. And it was like, it's a pig suit. Oh, what? It's a pig suit. And they're like, okay, well, we're going to go from infiltration to distraction. And
yeah, it's only you can do with that.
Exactly. And they spent some effort and they got some great roles. And it went from, I'm going to infiltrate to they're having a party in the public square and the guards are now part of the conga line. And then other people infiltrated behind them.
Nice.
Awesome.
We just kept that going. It was entertaining.
Yeah, that's super cool. Let's take a break real quick. Let's have our intermission. We will be back in about 8 to 10 minutes, somewhere in there. Give everyone a chance to use the bathroom or whatever and get something to drink. I need something to drink. And we will see you in a few. Please watch while we're gone. The intermission, I drop in a lot of cool Kickstarters that are running, Kickstarters, crowdfunds, what have you. And if there's any you like, the links will be dropped in, and go check them out. Maybe sign up to get notified. Maybe back something. Who knows? If you do back something, let me know. I think it'd be like a proud papa, Somebody back something from the intermission would be awesome. All right, we'll see you in a few minutes. See you in a few minutes, everybody. Welcome back, everybody. Back from our break and raring to go. We were backstage talking about the OGL debacle and all that stuff, and I do have a question about it in there that I'll get to at some point, maybe. I just don't know if I want to turn it into an OGL thing, so I had it as one of my iffy questions. But what I actually want to do is I want to bring up the questions for each individual specific to them. So I have one for each of them. And for this, I'm going to start with Eileen. What's the most interesting culture in any MCG setting from an anthropological perspective?
Oh, gee.
He warned you. He did warn you.
They are specific. I mean, it's an opinion. It's, it's your opinion of which one.
I can't say I own everything. I cannot say I have read everything in enough depth to have an all-encompassing answer.
Yeah. While you're thinking about it, the reason I asked Eileen that question is she's an anthropologist student. She's studying anthropology, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I turn that a little bit on its head?
Sure. All my questions are your questions, not mine. You can do what you want with them.
I like the approach of Numenera, because they're living on the bones of previous civilizations and they have all this technology. They have no idea what it does, and I really appreciate that as an archaeologist. And I'm taking an artifact analysis class right now, and the professor will put like these pottery sherds in front of you and be like, "Okay, what are you looking at?" And we're like, "Pottery." But you learn looking at how it was made, the shape in which things were made, the different technological applications within the pottery. You can kind of figure out, you can take this piece of pottery and kind of make a educated guess of what it does. So looking at Numenera, where they're playing with this tech, they're like, well, we kind of know what it does, or we know what we can get it to do. That is really dear to me, especially from an archaeological standpoint, because that is my focus discipline.
Yeah. All right. I mean, we did just relearn how the Romans did their concrete, right?
Mm-hmm. I did hear about that. I need to look into it.
Yeah, that was pretty amazing. All right. Alex, have you or will you find a way to combine your love of Cypher with your passion for Indian dance?
Oh, God. I feel like there could be a way to do it, just because most of the styles I've studied through Indian dance is a lot about the storytelling and trying to play multiple roles, along with math, which is weird.
Wait, with math? Is that what you just said?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so the concept is there are 9 different rhythm patterns in two definitely Indian dance styles. I do Kuchipudi and Bharatanatyam.
Which I wasn't going to pronounce. I thought I was going to say Indian dance. I don't want to try it.
So you have 3, 4, 5, 7, and 9. And it's just what combinations of these numbers can you fit within like a count of 36? Because you can do whatever you want within your amount of counts.
Interesting.
I smell subtle ciphers.
Yeah.
And just like imagining, okay, so how are you going to get your ciphers to work? But you have to use them within like this many counts. Or you have this many counts, you can do whatever you want. You have this, like, you have 32, like, movement points. Your movement is this many points. Your attack is this many points. Your special abilities are going to be more. So what are you going to do?
Nice.
You do the math in your head and make it work.
Yeah.
Through your body. Awesome.
And it's just a fun concept to just go, okay, here's what you can think of. Where's it going to go?
Very cool. All right, Chris. Now that you're about to ruin the national park experience for everyone, what other beloved institutions do you think needs a ruining? Hiking, playgrounds, like what other things need to be ruined?
Oh, that's a good question. What needs a good ruining? At some level, I want to say kind of my frustration is with all of it. But we've also learned when you start to redo everything from scratch, you get some weird ideas that end up with, I've read way too much dystopian science fiction from the 1970s.
Yeah.
I think the best thing that needs to be ruined is our passive aggressive attitudes towards art in our culture.
Oh.
It's like you have to be a starving artist, or if you're an artist, you're not really a business person. A lot of these things that where a lot of people go, oh, I was smart. I didn't do art. I got into a real job. Well, it's fascinating that you do art. Or the way I usually say it is, for people who don't know yet, I was trying to be a fiction writer plus doing journalism, and my day job was journalism, my advertising, marketing. During that time, I was the laziest, dumbest person in every room. Every blue-collar person would be like, it must be nice to write for a living. I do real work, thank you. And everybody with initials behind their name, MV, vice president, CEO, Esquire. Well, this is what you should do for writing, because since I can write a contract or a business plan, I know how to write a novel, or I know how to write marketing copy. This is what you need to do. Now, my day job is nurse. Suddenly, because I'm a nurse, I am now the smartest, hardest working person in every room I go into. Every blue collar person is like, I can't do what you do, especially since I did hospice for 8 years. A lot of people are like, no, I can't do that. You work so hard. I have respect for you. And then, every, initials behind them are, instead of telling me how they think I should do my job, because they're smarter than me, because they have, their, educational experience plus, usually money. Now they're like, oh, you know what? I have this thing right here. Do you think I should see a doctor? What do you think I should do? And I'm the same person. I was doing both jobs. But the attitude of people looking at my lens of me and the excuses they make to justify their attitudes towards me, completely different.
I agree. That would be a good thing to ruin.
Would be this passive aggressive, we all do it to some degree. If you work really hard, but you don't make a lot of money, you're more noble because of your hard work. But if you're making more money, that's because you're smarter and somehow you still work more than other people do.
Yeah.
And we're all underpaid. No matter what.
Agreed.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm venting. Oh.
All right. Dean, as the Aslan of RPGs, I know you were there in the beginning. So what was it like when Numenera was first born and unleashed on the unsuspecting public way back in 2012-13?
Well, that's a story I've told a couple of times. I remember backing it because I had back told us I was familiar with Monte Cook. He'd always done work that I respected and enjoyed. And, and then the concept, a science fantasy set 1 billion years in the future. I mean, who wouldn't want to get their hands on this? Well, did the Kickstarter. My book came in the mail. I opened it up and I was floored. I mean, literally floored. It was, oh my God, this is rich. There's something here. I don't know what I have, but it's something. And my first 2 Numenera games were disasters. They were the biggest piles of, I'm so glad nobody had convinced me to record that because, and it was because I hadn't had my paradigm shift. I had not had the understanding to leave what I had previously done at the door and work from a much more open-minded space and a much more free space, a space to where I could say yes, where I wasn't looking, because I was too busy looking for rules to dictate things, where Cypher literally is predicated on the whole concept of here's a rule, you interpret it, make a ruling, as opposed to here's a rule that states exactly how everything needs to be done. And it was really kind of a sad place. That first year, 2013 to 2014, I didn't get to do as much gaming as I wanted to because I kept being forced back into running things like, D&D and other stuff. And I was searching. And 2014 was a little better, but it was actually, a couple of years later meeting Anthony and Al just before we went to Gen Con 2018 becoming a member of Cypher Unlimited. And I guess I can say the rest is history.
Yeah. I mean, you actually led into my next question, which I think it will be, I think everyone else can answer because you sort of answered it. Is there a singular experience when you knew you were hooked on Cypher? Because that was definitely the singular experience when that box showed up on your door, Dean, and you looked at it and like, wow, what did I get? Anything like that?
Yeah, it was special. I mean, it really was.
What about the rest of you?
Got hooked into Invisible Sun first. We had seen Monte speak at Dragon Con in 2015, and then going back in 2016, there was a MCG panel, and they were talking about the upcoming Invisible Sun Kickstarter that I think started like the following week or something. And I was like, this is not anything I think anyone else could have come up with. What else are these folks doing? We had already bought, I think I knew we had Numenera by that point. I think we went to the dealer hall and hunted down a copy of Cypher at that point. And I was just floored by how flexible it is. The layout works so well for my ADHD brain that I can actually sit and it's not painful for me to read. I can grok the rules. It's not a miserable experience like most other games. I'm like, I want to run this. I hand it to my husband. I'm like, you tell me what this says because I can't read it. But Cypher and Numenera and their other games just it works so well for me.
Yeah. Chris, Alex, did you have a moment that you were like, oh, I'm in?
It was the bone snatching for me.
What?
The bone snatch.
Go on.
So this is probably, it was accidental, but it was a home campaign before the podcast got off the ground, and my character was doing the Exist Between Worlds in Numenera, and I was just like, well, I can, phase through wall. Human skin isn't that thick, so I'm just gonna immobilize this guy by reaching through and grabbing his femur. And then I was like, wait, can the bone come out with me? And yeah, it just led to a bunch of like bone collecting floppy body parts.
Yeah, that's pretty nasty.
I was just like, you can't do this in D&D.
Nope.
Yeah.
Jesus, I get led to a lot of floppy bone collecting. I like it. Floppy bone collecting.
There was a skull added to the collection.
Ooh.
There's a question in chat. Let's get to that one.
I was gonna jump in for a moment for my memorable thing.
Okay.
So there is a great mini campaign from a great writer, Ken Hite, called The Day After Ragnarok, which basically the Nazi occultists were right. And the atomic bomb, instead of landing on Hiroshima, went through the Great Serpent's eye instead.
Oh.
And created this entire kind of weird post-World War II world. Where the snake body is like mined for technology and chemicals, and it is the Great Serpent Curtain versus the Great Iron Curtain. And it was my first game running Cypher, and just tweaking things along was really great. But Yeah, I'm kind of a heavy improv GM a lot of times, and Cypher just really, I was like, oh, now I get it, and it really clicked with me, and we did all sorts of crazy things. Some of them right there on the border of the bone snatching. But yeah, it would we could bounce off each other. So, in fact, some of those sessions are on my old YouTube channel for Ganza Gaming, and you can check them out.
Nice.
In fact, I did the whole actual play. This basically was my first one. I did it because we had interviewed Shauna Germain on a podcast I was part of for a little bit, but it's now gone and defunct. And I tried the Cypher stuff, and it was great. Loved it. And then also probably I get a little thrill each time I explain to somebody, why is it different than D&D? Your quick ranger can ride the lightning. That's your character. Can you do that in D&D?
Right.
All right, the question in chat is, what's one of the bigger obstacles that, say, a 5e player might have a harder time getting their head around? I'm going to start with an answer I have, and it's one that I ran into the moment I read Cypher. 3 stats is a very difficult thing for someone coming from any crunchy system to get their head around, especially because there's a lot of things that are wrapped up in those that seem like in every other system they're separate. And I also think that there's when I started reading it, I felt initially all the other stats didn't matter, but how does charisma work then? That was the one, and I felt, wow, this is it made me stop and think. I need to stop wondering what's missing, and I need to be wondering what is there. And it really took a change in mentality for me to get past that idea. Because I've played a lot of crunchy systems and uncrunchy systems, but I'd never come across one that was quite as light as this, except Close or Over the Edge, which was almost a systemless game in itself. So what do you think players from other systems would have issues trying to get their head around, it would be hard for them to understand?
One of the biggest things that I've encountered is the grokking how skills and roles in the game work. For example, most games, if you have, you get a certain number of skill points, you have these skills, and if you don't have those skills, then in most cases, if they're not listed on a sheet or whatever, you can't make an attempt because you don't have the skill. So it's been kind of a task that I kind of lay out from the beginning to explain to people, practice, trained, and specialized, and to explain it to them in such a way that they realize it's just like in the real world. It's just like, like any of us right now, you're not, practiced. Yeah, I mean, you're not, a trained stunt car driver, but you are practiced driving cars. So you can get behind the wheel of any car and take an attempt at it, But if you have a actual talent in it, then that considers training. That means it's easier to do. But as far as anything else is concerned, you just apply your appropriate stat to it. You can add effort and edge, and those 3 concepts all together: effort, edge, and how to apply it to skills is a massive challenge for people coming from games like D&D or Savage Worlds or whatever that spells every skill out, and how points are allocated.
Yeah, agreed.
I think what I've encountered most is the intrusions. That you don't have to roll a 1 to get a GM intrusion, and you don't have to wait for the GM to instigate a player intrusion. That's usually one that when I run one shots, I kind of like, you can do this, but if it comes to you in the moment, go for it, but don't feel super tasked to work with it. But when I'm doing a campaign, it especially with the player intrusion, sometimes it's like I know that look in your face. You're thinking about something, let's hear it, kind of trying to draw that joint storytelling out rather than just the GM throwing their story out, giving more of that agency to the players.
Yeah, especially because the GM doesn't roll any dice. That throws
And that's
off
another
a
one.
little bit
People are
too.
like, "What?"
Yeah. Yeah. Chris, you sit in the store and tell people about Cypher System all day. What are the things that they run into problems with?
Well, I just had it at the top of my head, and the minute you asked me the question, it popped out. Well, one is overall, a lot of people are used to role-playing games to have certain frameworks, and they're used to the other game they're going to play is going to be like all the other games, except one thing is going to be a twist. It's going to be different. Oh, I roll under instead of over, or I'm using some points. And Cypher, basically, it's ironic. It's the inverse. New people who have never played a role-playing game before take to Cypher much faster than old veteran. Because the old veteran has got, okay, I have hit points, and this is how this works, and how skill checks work, and I just have to know, how it's done in this particular thing, and everything is different. So they keep getting tripped up. An old friend of ours, Brian, he could do math in his head and could play Pathfinder and play, Dungeons & Dragons 3.0, and then he would go to Cypher and he's like, I need an abacus because I want to just play with the beads for my different pools because I can't do the math, Chris. And I'm like, you're talking to me, and well, I can do math, and I do math all the time at my job. It's not a thing I take pleasure in or pride in like a lot of us geeky guys do. So I'm like, I can do the math in my head. I don't know why, you're the one that can do 20 plus 12s or plus 2s and figure it out. And of course, that's like 40, right? Another one I think is when it comes to GM intrusions, everybody's gut reaction is, it's a crit. It's a crit fumble. And I have to do it something where they stick themselves in the foot again. And I'm like, no, if you read it, you can turn a GM intrusion into anything that kind of creates a complication or puts some spice in play. Might be thinking about something in particular I'm working on recently, but when you have an obsession with bureaucracy, a GM intrusion may not be shooting yourself in the foot, but suddenly you have the urge to fill out a form, an accident form for what's going on right now, despite the screaming that's coming on the other side of the door. And then the other thing I think of is, and it's not like there's bad, wrong, fun, right? But D&D is the biggest crowd, right?
Yeah.
And in that biggest crowd, I always say game masters are gourmet chefs, but a lot of players are comfort food eaters. So one of the big things is, kind of going back to that, there's a twist here, there's a twist there. People want to go, okay, so how do I play my Elven Ranger in this game? I don't understand in Cypher where my Elven Ranger is. Because that's what they're like, even if you're like doing a modern day game, why are your ears pointed in the sniper? Oh, because the bow. Okay, I get it. You're still playing your Elven Ranger in our super spy game. I get it. Am I wrong?
No, not at all.
So,
I mean, it's just like you were saying about the GM intrusions, and I mean, I always talk about my favorite GM intrusion, where the swordsman was facing off against the city guard, and he finally rolled a 1, and instead of him, like you said, hitting one of his people, breaking his sword, stabbing himself, something silly, I had the city guard, the captain of the guard that he was facing, catch the blade of his sword in his hand and smile at him and go, "You're not as good as you think you are." That was like a great moment in the game. They never forgot it. I ended up turning that guard because they didn't defeat him. So guard ended up becoming the head of his own little rival group that would, plague the party periodically. So I got a whole set of NPCs that I never even expected to get, had no plan for out of a GM intrusion.
Yeah. All right. So, what is a Cypher product you want to run or play but haven't had the chance yet? Like the one that is just eating at you to run or play. That is already out, so you can't say Gods of Appalachia yet.
Oh.
No, I'm going to take that off the table. We'll talk about that in a minute anyway.
We're all mad here. It's been sitting at the top of my pile for
It's fun.
forever, and it is so close to a lot of the media that I consume. At the shop I work in is both gaming and comics, and I have so many ideas that I know will work so well with that book. But finding the time, my life, I am subsisting on one shots. But I am really, really wanting to run a campaign. Maybe this summer when the semester's over, we'll see.
One shots, they make me sad.
It's like snacks sometimes. I mean, they're great. I love one shots.
Yeah.
But when you're really wanting to get a campaign in and you can't, it's like living off of snacks.
Yep.
As far as I'm concerned, I'm kind of in the boat with Eileen. It's not even so much any one product or one setting that I want to run. I just want to run a campaign. The biggest thing that has happened since joining Cypher Unlimited, becoming, one of the guys and stuff, Cypher in what life and responsibility, I just don't have the time that I want. So I've been running one shots for the last 6 years, going on 6 years now. I get to run I ran a few, multi-part adventures that took, maybe 6 or 8 sessions or something like that. But it's been so long since I've run a campaign. I'm used to running, campaigns that run years.
Yeah.
So to get the opportunity to finally run a campaign in Cypher, I know I'm just going to do backflips, because the story progression is going to be so much more interesting, because the characters are going to push that story more so than anything that I'm sitting there creating. Get some great character arcs going on. Those character arcs get to be woven together in order to make a cohesive whole. Like I said, I see the potential and the possibilities, and I just can't wait to get the opportunity. But it's all about time. So I understand your pain, Eileen.
Yeah.
We just play them all the time.
Have you played No Thank You Evil yet?
I have not. That sounds beautiful.
Oh, No Thank You Evil. You'll love it.
I'm going to have to talk to Daniel and be like, we need to
What
do
about you,
this
Chris?
next.
Playing Cypher and being, kind of going all over the place, I've kind of touched on a lot of the games related to the settings and stuff related to Cypher, or game mastered it, but I have not yet played The Strange.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And I think The Strange kind of fits in my wheelhouse of, because it's very meta. It's about literature and pop culture to some degree. I don't know if there's any spoilers here or not. On one level, it's almost like I wish they would kind of open that up for community content, because I would like to play around with that as a designer as well. But I would like to play in a Strange game. Never mind, running one. I would actually think I would prefer playing in the Strange than running it.
Well, you already know my argument about the Strange. I mean, everything is the Strange. Because it's easily plugged in. No matter how you look at it, nothing we create cannot be put into the Strange, because what is the Strange? The collective imagination. So it's out there. The minute we conceive it, there's the reality seed, and the planet Vor is starting to move because he's getting hungry. Oh, look, they got more tasties out there for us. So that's the way I see it.
All right. So what about? I think Alex didn't say yet, right? You just you kind of agreed with no thank you evil. It would be cool.
Well, now I'm just like, no, now I know how to play No Thank You Evil. It sounds glorious.
Yeah.
Gonna Google this.
So what's the game then that you know that's coming that you're most excited about, that you really want to get your hands on? And it doesn't have to be a Monte Cook game, just a Cypher product, built around it.
But I want to do Old Gods of Appalachia, but I keep threatening RGM that if he brings that to the table, I'm going to make it Old Gods of the Midwest. And we are doing that accent the entire time.
Yep.
Honestly, I'm looking forward to the 2 books that were just funded in the Adventures of the Cypher System crowdfunding. Rust and Redemption and It's Only Magic are just going to be such useful tools to add to the repertoire, because it's not that you need any of the things that Monte Cook Games puts out for Cypher System, but it's just when they do, they put out such quality. It's like they could phone in a lot of the products and they never do. And it's always such a treat to get your hands on them. It's like, Christmas in July or whatever month those books start showing up. The minute they start giving those emails, we can go download the PDF. I'll be like, okay, let me make sure my tablet's charged. I'll be reading this all day.
Yeah. Eileen.
Oh, It's Only Magic or Old Gods. I do have early access for Old Gods, and what I have seen is absolutely phenomenal. The team has really outdone themselves on this product, and then I have no insider knowledge on It's Only Magic, but just what we've seen through the Kickstarter, the crowdfunding. Yeah, that. I just want to take that, and we're all mad here, and mash it together and create something. Hopefully something beautiful. Well, you never know where such things will take us, but yeah, it's a toss-up between those 2.
You said something, Eileen, that triggered another thought. Here's another book I got to throw out there, and that's The Weird.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
The Weird, I think everybody wants to get their hands on that, because that's just that's like even a crazier tipping point, because that means you can flip your already existing games, because it's all system agnostic. It's just stuff to twist the game a little bit. And they got different levels of the twisting. You can go, like I said, interesting, fantastical, whimsical, and straight out gonzo. So it's like, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the unnamed bestiary that's a stretch goal for the Adventures in Cypher Kickstarter. Basically, the comedy bestiary. Bestiary, I'm sorry.
I thought you'd be most excited about the Mystery Flesh Pit National Park product.
Well, we were talking Monte Cook, I thought. So, but yeah.
Is that anything?
I'll be extremely excited when this comes out.
Yeah, I'm excited for Underground Oracle's Harrow. I think that's going to be really interesting.
That's fantastic.
There's some very D&D-ish things, but they also are pushing way outside the bounds of that, and I love that. I will say I'm gonna give a criticism to Monte Cook Games. I hope they listen. Here's one thing that bothers me a little bit. Invisible Sun, I'm super excited. I want to run or play it. And I feel that they have pushed it to the side a little bit and are not putting anything behind it anymore, which makes me feel it may be reaching an end of life moment, or it becomes like a back catalog thing. But I hope that I'm wrong about it. There's things coming. I don't like the idea of a system that young collapsing under just no product releases. But I mean, it won't matter. I'm still going to run it and play it anyway. But
so Monte indicated during the Cypher Limited AMA that Invisible Sun is still on his mind. So I think
Nice.
It's
Yeah, and another thing about Invisible Sun, I look at Invisible Sun just like I look at Numenera. If Monte Cook Games stopped creating content for either of those right now, you still have 25 plus years of content. You're not even scratching the surface, and that's what I'm saying. People, they want more, 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 but I know myself. I read fast. I retain a lot of information. I played a multitude of games, and I have but scratched the surface with Numenera. I have to go back sometimes and read some of the stuff because it's like, oh man, I forgot about that. Oh, that's so good, and I've not had the opportunity to actually implement it. And the way the world is set up, if you look at, the map for Numenera, it literally is a mass of untouched, real estate. You can go in there and like I said, with this new product they got coming out called the Twilight Valley. That just sounds awesome because I don't know what it is. We do know that it's a starter point for Numenera campaigns. But my thought process is, I mean, here, let's just make it a little bit weirder. Let's take the concept that maybe the Twilight Valley actually appears in different places at different times of the year or different, or it moves like the castle in Crow. All these things come just from little things and snippets that Monty will say about the game or about an idea that triggers something else. So I'm not worried that we won't get any more goodies. I'm just saying there's so much at your fingertips already.
Yeah, there are. All right, here's an easy question for everybody. Favorite monster that you've come across, you've experienced, you've run?
we fought a grandfather clock and invisible sun.
Ooh.
Oh.
That's the first thing that comes to mind.
I mean, that is
oh,
pretty
it
unique.
was a rough fight too. It was great.
Damn, why'd you tell me that? Now I want to play more.
What is
Just
that,
that.
Dean?
What is that, Dean?
That is the Earthshaker from Numenera.
Ooh.
And it's like a cross between a mastodon or a woolly mammoth and your typical herbivores. And it doesn't really have a face per se. It just has this weird maul. These things are so cool because they can become aggressive and stampede, but for the most part, because they're so big and powerful and dense, they're not aggressive. It's just a great monster to actually, as used as a set piece. And then that's when the great GM intrusion happens. When we had a guy, literally found the pleasure nerve ending on its leg by GM intrusion, and started the herd running because all the males could smell her. It was great. It was a great GM intrusion.
Oh, we had a mountain range there once.
Yeah, basically. So, yeah, that'd be one of the coolest monsters out there.
I have two. One was early on when we had Gods of the Fall. You play demigods, growing demigods, which is a great fit for Cypher and fantasy.
Yeah.
And the God of War.
Yeah, Neil Gaiman's Sandman.
This is true too.
See the connections? They're everywhere.
The demigod of War split a T-Rex in two in one shot.
Nice.
It was like, what?
Oh,
And then the other
T-Rex.
one, I did my own kind of spin on an inspiration for Spelljammer for Cypher. And we had a fight with Cypher. And those who play Cypher know Cypher does not have long combats. We did it for over an hour.
Wow.
But it was because it was multi-layered with different opponents and GM intrusions where I introduced new villain or new enemies that were still part of the original enemy earlier, and it was just like, what? It's just in this version of the Spelljammer I have, there's kind of like a hive race that takes and mutates creatures and controls them. And one of their main tactics is they have bugs that infiltrate a ship and then create a summoning portal. So they were fighting those, and then the things that spilled out of the portal, and some mutated victims. And those mutated victims are from a marionette / Warforged type race. So they were like, they had just met them, and they're like, you guys are nice. And then here's the frightening versions of them. And it just kept on accelerating. And went, I was like, and nobody was bored. Nobody was slow. Everything was just, intense. We were all like at the end of it, we were all like literally just
Nice.
like we had run a mile, like we had actually been in that combat.
Right. That's
It was
amazing. Those are
I
the
will
moments you
never
want.
be able to do that again. Never didn't plan it, couldn't redo it. If you paid me, I couldn't redo it.
Nice.
Alex, any favorite monster for you?
I think they're called kissing deer. Is that what they're called? I don't know. They're
I don't know.
basically a deer with a tentacle face, and you're just like,
That rings a bell.
What is with the kissing?
Well, who doesn't want to kiss a beautiful deer?
yeah.
It has a tentacle
tentacles.
mouth.
Yeah. Ooh, woo, tentacles. I don't know. I just like how it's just like, it's a deer, but tentacles. And you're just like, I can just imagine someone walking through the forest. It's like, oh, it's a deer. That's great. And then all of a sudden, oh, that's not great. That's not great.
Is there anything you think is missing in Cypher, or that you'd love to see be brought to Cypher?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's coming. You know what I mean? We've got cosmic horror coming. That's not there yet, but it's coming.
Yeah.
And we don't have wuxia and kung fu movies in Cypher, but it's coming.
Yeah.
So it's like a lot of stuff that's not there, but it's like on the precipice. And I'm super excited about, what's on the precipice. So
Yeah. I think just opening up Cypher to so many new creators, a lot of holes are going to get filled in pretty quickly.
I mean, and like the Haro, that's actually, that's brilliant. I can't wait to get my fingers on it. I can't wait to, start perusing it. It's, it's like it was a no-brainer. Oh yeah, I gotta back this one, which is crazy. And the way I look at it is because I wonder if we're gonna start seeing happen with Cypher what happened with 5e, when every time there's a Kickstarter for a 5e product, it funds, several times over. So
Well,
I'm
Monte
hoping
Cook
to see
has set a
that.
precedence for that. I mean, those things, they fund big. And just
Yeah, well, that's what I'm
immediately.
saying. Monte Cook funds big, but I'm
Right.
saying I want to see what happens with the third parties. And,
But I think
hopefully-
that the quality and the zeitgeist around Monte Cook games attracts a certain type of creator that wants to create things bigger and better than D&D stuff anyway. They want to do
Right.
things more uniquely. They're not trying to fit in, they're trying to stand out. At least right now, because the ecosystem is wide open. There's so much you can do. In D&D, it's a limited system, but also everyone wants to look like other D&D product. And I don't feel that's the same right now with the third-party creators coming into Cypher. But
I think the big difference there is that D&D it's a fantasy tactical game. Cypher is built on the idea of innovation.
yeah, it lends
cinematic.
to creativity.
Like you said, it's cinematic. It's evocative. It's moving. It's telling a story interactively where like Chris said, to walk away from a combat situation in a game and you're going, man, You're literally breathing because you're invested, you know.
Yeah.
Those moments, and as I said, I've been running, one shots for all these years, but I can remember just about every single game that I've either been behind the screen or in front of the screen for. All the games that we've recorded on, the Cypher Unlimited channel, every one of those games has a moment that is memorable. I'll be honest, I can't say the same thing about D&D. I can't. And don't get me wrong, I have nothing against D&D. I'll always love it. It was my gateway to where I am today. But, Cypher System just speaks to the creative, and to the person who wants to make, as opposed to the person who just wants to consume.
Yeah. Do the others think there's anything missing or they'd like to see brought in?
I mean, at this point, to be honest, if Adventures in Cypher Kickstarter hadn't happened, those things were on my list next. In fact, if you go to my Twitter, you may find I was doing it's kind of like a practice project before Mystery Flesh Pit. I was doing a zombie / monster post-apocalyptic kind of style setting with vehicle rules, and so it was a little mid-maxy and everything like that. So yeah, I was kind of already on my to-do list until the Kickstarter came in. And to be honest, like what we've seen with fantasy, I don't think one book is just going to do it. So I may go revisit those things in the future. And there's different ways to do urban fantasy. Just to let you know, there's a company right now, they're going to do their own redo of Urban Arcana, and they've decided to do it as a contest. Pitch us a modern fantasy type setting, and winner gets to be made into a book.
Yeah,
that's cool.
I think modern / urban fantasy would have been mine. Monte Cook Games has the remarkable ability to create the products that I wanted that I didn't realize I wanted. And now that the floodgates have opened with third party, it's just like, it's like walking into a banquet hall.
Yeah, you know what it is? We've talked to Monte and the team so long, for so many years, so it's great. And all of the creators there are unique and very outgoing people in the respect of their creativity. And it's funny because they are an eclectic bunch, but they also, the one big thing I say is they have an ear to the community. They listen to us. They interact with us on a genuine, real level. It made my day when Sean told us that, he sat and took notes when we talked about superheroes on our show. And a lot of stuff that we talked about found its way into Claim the Sky, So I think that's, like you said, what you were saying, Eileen, about that, them making the products you don't even know you want, because they kind of listen and then they do things and they put their own spin, which is beautiful, because that makes it even better. You don't feel, I don't know, I guess.
The Stars Are Fire is not Traveler.
Right.
I mean, it's just not. It's a very different space opera game. And it's only loosely fits that space opera concept because it doesn't need to fit it exactly like Traveler did. And it's beautiful.
You got it.
Yeah. All right. We have actually reached the end of our show. We reached the 10:30 mark. We're running over. So why don't we let everyone go around and say where they can be found, what they're doing, and promote whatever you like. I know that Eileen works at a game store, right? So you may as well throw that out. Me and Chris go to the same game store down here. So that's pretty cool. I love brick and mortar, so I'm always happy to hear that they're still finding their way in this digital age. So why don't we start with Chris and go around the opposite way this time?
So for my local store that Scott and I know so well, that's the Adventure Game Store, where we do have a Numenera book sitting there and waiting. Might even put a little discount on it because it's it's the first version of the Numenera book. Right now, I'm getting into the final weeks of putting everything together for my upcoming Kickstarter, Mystery Flesh Pit National Park. It lays backwards on the screen. And if you want to know what that even is, Mystery Flesh Pit Nationalpark.com is a great website of world building that is cosmic horror with some dark comedy and bureaucratic satire. And after we got the open license, I reached out to the artist, and this is how we've been working on it for about a year now. So I'm sure Scott's going to put in our email landing page so you can check it out.
Yeah, it's
and I will pass on the baton to the next.
Cthulhu meets Brazil. What's not to love?
Yes, another one.
And Eileen.
You can find me at Eileen MK Barnes on Twitter. I believe I'm Eileen Barnes on Dice Camp on Mastodon. I use that sporadically. If you're ever in the St. Louis Metro East, come visit Fantasy Books and Games, or Heroic Adventures. We have 3 locations. Keep an eye on my Twitter. When I get to start putting pencil to paper on this archaeology game, I may be looking for some folks for second opinions. So come follow what I'm doing, and eventually I'll get to talk about what I've worked on with Monte Cook Games.
You could have just broken NDA and done it tonight.
Yeah, well, no. I don't want Charles to send the big, strong lads over to my house because, they know where I live now.
All right, Dean.
Oh, again, AlphaDean AD. You can catch me all over the interwebs. If you look that up, you're going to find me. That's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord. The Discord is Cypher Unlimited. And that's, we're also Cypher Unlimited on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook. Join us, like, share, follow, subscribe, do all those good things. I'm 1/3 of the Cypher Unlimited crew. Eileen is one of our golden ones. She takes care of you people out there as well. Come on over. What else? Just keep your eyes open. I share stuff on my own personal Facebook page. Is called Sovereign Sentinels of Geekdom. And the Sovereign Sentinels of Geekdom is a completely geek page. Everything, under the sun, movies, music, you name it, whatever you geek about, we like to talk about it over there as well. And very simply, end of the day, come and join us on Discord. Talk to us about Cypher System. We're always there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 a year. There's always somebody there to talk to.
Awesome. And Alex, you get to close us out.
Well, I'm on a podcast called Explorers Wanted. We have a Discord if you want to join and just hang out there. All the cast members are in that Discord as well. You can find me on Twitter at RealtyUnicorn, and I think now that I've maybe fixed my laptop as I hit uneasily, I'm going to start streaming me playing video games badly on Twitch again, and I'm Tea with a Unicorn on Twitch.
Nice. I'm Scott. This is ZealZaddy, and StoryTalk is our game of an attempt at elevated TTRPG discussion every week. Next week, we're talking about how writers, artists, and cartographers find sales channels. So it's not always about games. It's also about the business side. Sometimes it's about players and streaming and all TTRPG related, but not necessarily right down the center. I try and dance around a lot of different things because I'm super nerdy and interested in everything. So I try and get into all of it and find out how to help both improve ourselves and improve other people's attempts at becoming creators or enjoying games or DMing. All right. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week. Have a good night, everybody.
Hey.